So guys, in this video, we are going to discuss how you are going to evaluate your own answers rather than waiting for your mentor to get it evaluated. It may take some time, right? Of course, you will get it evaluated by mentor also, and you'll get the feedback also, and that's very much required. But meantime, what you can do with your papers, right? See, one of the biggest mistake when it comes to the preparation is, you write an answer, and after writing an answer, you close the notebooks and immediately move on to the next question or next topic, right? And you believe that writing more answers automatically means improvement. And unfortunately, that is not how improvement happens. Writing is only half the process. So the other half is reflection. If you never analyze your mistake, you'll keep repeating the same mistake. So see, the real improvement begins only when you start asking questions. What did I do well? So if you have written a very good answer, why and what you have done well, and what did I miss in this? And why would an examiner deduct mark? If I am the examiner, why would I deduct mark in this particular answer? How can this answer become, can make 1 mark extra? See, if you remember many of my mentees, whether it is Vikas, he got IPS last year, now he got 27th rank. And Kiran, he got 53rd rank in his last attempt. Rohin, 39th rank. Sonali, Sachin, 43rd rank. So all these, you see, one thing that they have done is from the previous attempt, they just try to improve that 1 mark, 2 mark extra. The content almost remained the same. Answer writing is where we focused most, and the time that I also spent with the maximum on answer writing, feedback, evaluation, and improvement in the answer writing. And how can you fetch that 1, 2 extra mark? Because already you attended interview last year. Now, if you can get that 1, 2 extra mark, you are definitely not going to be in the list. You will be in the top 100. And the names that I've taken, I'll attach those testimonials and the podcast also. You can see, you can watch the podcast, and every time when they talk about answer writing, they will also tell the same, that 1 mark improvement, how can you get? See, remember, when you practice, that is ultimately, if you see Sachin's podcast, you will see that he have written 5,000 answers. If you see Kiran's podcast, he have written 1,000 plus answers after the prelims. So practice makes something very permanent. Of course, if it also make you perfect, even if it is not making you necessarily perfect, but something permanent you will get, right? If you repeatedly practice the mistakes, those mistakes become your habit. So that is why you need to revisit, you need evaluation, not reading a topic and writing and closing the knot, right? You have to get it evaluated yourself. You will have to understand the mistake yourself, and maybe that is not enough. That is why you have a mentor also. He will be giving you further feedback from a next person, third person's perspective. But you also should be in a position to reflect upon that. So today I'll be telling you how build a complete self-evaluation system. So that will actually help you to evaluate your papers rather than waiting for your mentor's feedback, because your mentor is not only your mentor. See, when I talk about my mentees, there are thousands of mentees. So you will have to take care of all of them. So there may be delay. So you are someone who's writing the answer, you can get it evaluated in the next minute itself. But when it comes to the mentors, it may take 3 days or 4 days or even 1 week also. So you don't want to wait till then. You can improve upon that on that very next moment itself, right? That is why self-evaluation matters more important. Many aspirants depend entirely on the mentors, or you write the test series and now you think that it is a responsibility of your mentor or the teacher to give the feedback. See, external valuation, definitely the third person's valuation is very much valuable, very much required, but you cannot wait for someone else to check your answer, and you cannot wait for so much time. The best what I've seen is, even though Sachin or Kiran or all these mentees are giving us their papers to get it evaluated and waiting for the feedback, but they themselves go through that and they themselves correct their mistake. So whenever I say some points, they've already identified those points themselves, and that makes it much more better, right? The best candidates, they eventually become their own evaluators. See, if I can find my mistake, and if the examiner or the mentor is also highlighting the same, then actually you can feel confident because you have the scope of improvement. And when you can identify your own mistake, improvement is going to be much more faster and easier. So if you evaluate your answers, it will develop self-awareness also. It will develop critical thinking also, because you are now evaluating from an examiner perspective, and you will develop that examiner perspective so that you can write an answer for examiner. and that consistency you can develop in answer writing. Right. What is the biggest challenge when it comes to self-evaluation? There is one problem. We are naturally biased towards our own answers, right? When we read our own answer, especially immediately after when you're writing, your brain remember everything we intended to write. So even if the answer is unclear, you feel like enjoying when you're reading your own answer, right? Your mind actually fills the gap. So the examiner cannot do that. The examiner only read what is written, not what you intended. So that problem is there. Because of that, never evaluate an answer immediately after writing it, because immediately after writing it, you had some points in mind. You have not written, but when you are evaluating the paper, that will be there still in your mind. But maybe after taking a break, maybe 1 hour break, you're coming back and you're evaluating. Then that mindset that you had when you are writing the answer and will be completely different when it comes to evaluating. So that point is not there. So leave a gap. It can be 1 day, it can be 4 hours, right? So before you read the answer which you have written again, leave maybe 1 day gap, because after 1 day, you forget your original thought process when you have written the exam. Now you can read like, examiner, right? You can read your answer like a fresh evaluator. So that makes your judgment much more objective also. You won't be biased also, right? So you always need to be thinking like an examiner when you are evaluating, even when you're writing the answer also. You should be that habit. If you need to develop, you should think like an examiner and you should evaluate your paper. So naturally, when you're writing also, you'll think like an evaluator and your answer writing also will improve. So this is another mistake that the students make when reading their own answers, slowly and sympathetically. The examiner does not do either of this, right? The examiner is checking hundreds of copies. He have very limited time, and he himself might be going through a lot of problems and a lot of stress. So he forms the impression within seconds. Therefore, because of that itself, when you evaluate, pretend you are in a hurry and ask yourself, if I were checking this copy in 1 minute, what impression would I get? See, the examiner is not going to spend time for you. You may spend time for you. You may feel sympathy for you, but examiner is not going to feel that. So that single mindset, that changes the way you write also. If you can change the way you evaluate, and if you can think like examiner when you're writing also, that will have a big impact. So that's how you will improve your answer writing skill. Now see, every answer, in fact, should pass a simple 60-second scan. Imagine the examiner is glancing through your answer. Within 1 minute, they should immediately notice 4 things. Whether this answer have a clear introduction. Clear introduction means straight to the point, simple, direct, relevant, no unnecessary philosophical sentences or jargons, no word salad, right? The introduction should immediately establish that you understood the question. What is a clear demand of the question? You are writing that. So you are imitating the question actually in the introduction, so that it will tell the examiner that you understood the answer, the demand of the examiner. Now you need to have proper subheadings. So the examiner also will check at that subheadings is there or not. So subheadings should reflect the demand of the question. For example, if the question asking, responsibilities, rights, limitation, then your answer should visibly contain these 3 headings. It has to be there: responsibilities, rights, limitations. It should be written in terms of headings and it should be underlined, because that is the demand of the question. So the examiner should immediately feel that yes, every part of the question has been addressed. So by seeing the heading itself, he understood, yes, these are the 3 parts which has been asked in the question and it has been answered, addressed in that answer. Now it's about the content in that, right? And the relevant first point. The first point under every heading that you're writing, that should be the strongest point. Don't think that I'll start the less important one and go to the best one. No one is having time. So first point should be the best point in every subheading. Do not hide your best content in the middle, nor don't keep it towards the end for giving the last impression. The examiner forms that impression quickly. Responsibilities means the primary responsibility you should write first, right? So lead always with your strongest argument. Start always with your strongest argument. And then he's looking for the fourth part, that is a conclusion. Never end your answer abruptly. There should be a short conclusion. It could be, see, a way forward. When it comes to GS, I would say mostly way forward, right? Ethics, GS, etc. It could be way forward. In ethics, it can be summary of the question which has been answered. In optional also, mostly you cannot write way forward. unless it is paper 2, you mostly will be writing summary. So two way in which you can give a conclusion is, there will be a way forward. You can talk about in GS constitutional value, sustainable development goal, a committee recommendation, or a future outlook. And in fact, that create a positive final impression just before the marks are getting awarded. Now, the other way in which you can write the conclusion is brief summary of what you have written. So that itself is, reinforcing that you have understood the demand of the question, you have addressed the demand of the question in that, and in conclusion also, it has been clearly there, right? But the way forward is better way in GS, but summarizing your written content is the best way when it comes to your optional. See, the first evaluation question, when you do it, did I answer exactly what UPSC asked? Did I answer this question? Right? Most students will answer the topic. Very few answer the question. You see a topic, but you don't actually understand the underlying demand of the question. You try to answer the topic. So if you see a topic and understand the demand of the question and then answer that. For example, if the question is asking, discuss the responsibilities, rights, and limitation of the Attorney General in ensuring sound governance. So the demand is not just responsibilities, rights, limitation. It also include how these contribute to governance, right? So when you see Attorney General, you start writing about Attorney General appointments and all those things. Or when you see responsibilities, rights, and limitation of Attorney General, you will write that and you will conclude that. But what is the demand here? How it is going to ensure sound governance? How it is contributing these responsibilities, rights, and limitation contributing to good governance? That is the main point. So missing even one component, in fact, that's a major component. That means your answer is incomplete. You have not addressed the demand of the exam. You won't be getting marked. So always break every question into its individual demands before you write and before you evaluate. So when you're writing and when you're evaluating, you can see that mismatch. So when next time you are writing, you will remember that and you will again see, this is how evaluator is doing, right? He break down. So when I'm writing, I also have to break down. And then I have to address the demand of each of these. If the evaluator is checking whether he addressed the demand of the question in all dimension, when you're writing, you also have to think in that way. Reverse engineering, right? And dimension check. UPSC rewards, breadth also, different dimensions. Sometimes you may not be able to go in depth, too much depth, because you have very limited space, very limited time. So ask yourself, have I looked at the issue from multiple dimensions? See, if you have a 15 marker, and if you consider 15 marker, 1 point, 1 mark, 15 point is what I'm looking for. What is the best way? Is it easy to collect 15 points in one go? You take so much time to do that, a lot of brainstorming. But can I think about 5 dimension easily? Economic, social, environmental, 5 dimension easily. If I think of 5 dimension, can I get at least 3 points easily? Right, out of which I'll write the first and most important point in the beginning. So 15 point automatically came. So you have, of course, you have this pastel framework, right? Political, economic, social, technological, environmental, legal, right? Or for international relation, you have this MIDIX, framework, the military, economic, diplomatic, ideological, cultural, and strategic. And for disaster management, you have this before, during, after, build back better, all these frameworks. So frameworks, if you have, that help you generate points quickly and improve your answer breadth. You don't want to go depth for one dimension. You don't want 15 points. That's what I mean by depth. But we need 5 dimension. We need 3 points each in one dimension. And this dimension, naturally, it will come to you. Or when you have this framework also, it will come to you. So breadth wins mark when it comes to mains, right? So UPSC is selecting future administrators, not the researchers. If I'm a researcher, I need to go deep, but here I need breadth, different dimension. An administrator must think across sectors. Researcher may know everything about one issue. And we have specialists for that. As an administrator, you can use the help of any specialist. So you don't want depth, you need the peripheral knowledge. You need the different sectors, you need the different dimension. So administrator have to understand many issues reasonably well. Don't want to have a very great understanding of one issue or all issue. Because of that, answers should reflect multiple perspectives rather than excessive detail on one particular dimension or one particular point. Right now, let me give you subject-wise specific validation. Every GS paper have unique scoring opportunity. GS1, you need to use timeline, you need to use diagrams, you need to use maps. When you're drawing something, When you're that geography question, you simply draw a map and explain. That's one value addition. That's where you can get that 1 mark extra. GS2, you can mention constitutional articles, Supreme Court judgments, various committees, constitutional bodies. GS3, you can use sustainable development goals, government schemes, various reports, data, flowchart, maps. Internal security question is asked, you just draw the map and explain. Disaster management cycle. Right, GS4, ethics paper. Immediately you try to identify the ethical issues, stakeholders, core values, ethical principle. Even in quotation questions, directly connect the quotation with the subject syllabus in the topic. Multiple topics covered in the syllabus. Explain what the quotation is fundamentally about before analyzing it, and connect that quotation with 2-3 topics from the syllabus. Your answer is ready. Right? So these, if you have these subject-specific additions, that actually distinguish between this top hundreds and rest of others. High-scoring answers. How Sachin became national topper in GS. Therefore, he got 43rd rank. Right? See, again, many students think half a mark doesn't matter. No, actually, half mark matters enormously. Suppose you get 0.5 marks per answer across 20 answers. That becomes 10 mark. Overall, if you calculate 4 GS papers, 40 mark. Right? And 1 essay, 50. Optional, 70 marks extra. And that is the one which is actually going to push you to that first 100. Right? That difference can completely change your final rank. So never underestimate half a mark. Only thing that I did when I worked with Sachin or Kiran, I just asked them to improve, if possible, 1 mark on every question. This is what I've worked with them. Rest of the things they know, they have the content and everything they have. For me, my job was very simple with these guys. My job is only to make sure that you get that 1 mark extra. Rest of it, they know. They know what to do also. Job is very simple. Right? So self-evaluation, it should also include time. Right? You also, when you're writing also, it should also include time. 10 marker, 7 minutes. 15 marker, 11 to 12 minutes. So if your answer is excellent, but you're going beyond time, it's still a problem. Then there is no point in evaluating that. So UPSC reward that completed papers, not perfect, unfinished papers. You don't want to be perfect in one question and leave one question completely. Right? Complete your papers. That is more important. Then many aspirants write too much. Right? Knowing more doesn't mean writing more. The real skill is saying more in fewer words. Every unnecessary sentence actually reduces time available for another answer. What high-scoring candidates do is short sentences, clear-cut points, precise arguments. Economy of words. That's a competitive advantage. Then I need to talk about content fluency. See, sometimes students know the content but cannot generate points quickly. This is called poor content fluency. So the solution is what? You think through frameworks. I've already told you, whether it is international relation, Middix framework, or pastel approach, right? So instead of struggling to remember random points, think about 5 dimensions. Now, if I get 5 dimensions, I can easily get 2-3 points in each of these dimensions, or stakeholder analysis, or life cycle approach. So these frameworks, if you have, or once you know the dimension, then that makes your thinking faster, right? And one of the most powerful learning techniques is choose a topper copy. Do not read the answer, but read only the question and write your own answer first. Then you compare, right? So you can answer, did I miss dimension? What he have written? Whether my structure is weaker compared to that? Did I use fewer examples compared to that? Was my conclusion weaker? What about my structure? Where my diagrams missing? You can see the diagrams there, right? So see, this comparison is not to get discouraged. The comparison is to identifying the gaps. This is how improvement happens. Improvement happens over a period of time. You should be able to make comparison. You should be able to make improvement. Right? And previous year questions are not just practice question. Always remember this. They are the learning tools. You have to group the previous year questions topic-wise. You observe the recurrent themes. You can see themes are repeating. Recurring dimensions, recurring directives, frequently used concepts. that basically help you to improve, both preparation also and when you're evaluating also yourself. Right? So when you're writing or when you're evaluating, the checklist is the same. So let me tell you, when you're evaluating, what is the checklist? So when you're writing, so from my perspective, when I'm evaluating, what is my checklist? So when you're writing, you try to fulfill that checklist. First of all, whether the demand is fulfilled. Second, do I have a clear introduction? Third, does this person have a proper subheading? This is what I look at. Fourth, strong first points. I have subheadings, but the first point is supposed to be strong. Multiple dimensions, subject-wise value addition, diagrams, maps, flowcharts. Is the conclusion is proper, way forward, right? Time limit, presentation clean. If all these are present, the answer is likely to score. So your preparation should follow the cycle. You write, wait for 1 day, you evaluate, you identify the mistake, improve the notes, rewrite, evaluate again. Every cycle should remove one weakness. Eventually, your answer quality naturally improves. Sachin, I've written 5,000 answers. Just look at the podcast. See the podcast, then you will get that confidence. So my dear aspirants, friends, answer writing alone is not going to improve the mark. You write answer, you close the note, it's gone. Thoughtful answer writing will improve it, right? You should not wait for your mentor's feedback. Before that, you should develop your own understanding. Thoughtful answer writing comes from thoughtful evaluation. Do not simply count the number of answers you write. Count the number of mistakes you are able to eliminate after writing each of the answers. Because every mistake that you remove today, that becomes one extra mark tomorrow. Every mistake that you correct now is your stepping stone. Remember, UPSC is not going to reward effort alone. It rewards continuous improvement. And self-evaluation, I would say, in fact, is one of the most powerful tools to achieve that improvement. Do not wait for me to evaluate your paper or your mentor to evaluate your paper. Definitely it will be done, but you do it yourself. That gives you more confidence. That gives you a power to think from the examiner perspective. So that's it, guys. I hope you will start doing this from tomorrow onwards, or today onwards, and let me know what is the improvement that you're making. See you. Thank you.